Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema Safari. Today we have a big episode. We're going to be talking about Jaws. 50 years, it's the 50th anniversary this year. It was released in 1975. We're going to be talking about some of the impacts that the film has had on audiences in the film industry, how it kind of helped shape the film industry when it was first released, and some of the challenges that the cast and crew faced, and just some impacts it's had on us. I'll also be telling you the name of the shark in the film. Yes, the mechanical shark did have a name, and if you don't already know, you have to watch this episode to find out. So stick around for Jaws at 50. Jaws at 50. Can't believe it's been 50 years since Jaws came out. So Jaws, big cast, and a lot of the main cast, I would say, had pretty significant careers outside of Jaws, which is great as well. So we have Roy Scheider in the lead role as Police Chief Martin Brody. He also went on to star in the first sequel in the franchise. Robert Shaw plays Quint, Richard Dreyfuss as Matt Hopper. Now the three of them I would say are the main trio in the film. They of course are the ones who go after Bruce the Shark. Yes, his name is Bruce for those of you who didn't know that. The big question is he related to Bruce from Finding Nemo? Which is a question for another episode. Lorraine Gary as Ellen Brody, the wife of Roy Scheider's character. She also went on to appear in several of the sequels in the franchise as well. And then we have Maury Hamilton as Mayor Larry Vaughn in the film. Now, Jaws is considered by many as one of the greatest films ever made. By both audiences, critics, a lot of film institutes. It's been on a lot of lists for the great different things as well. Some of those include it was number 48 on American Film Institute's list of 100 years, 100 movies. That was released in 1998. It dropped to number 56 on the 10th anniversary list that they put out. They also ranked the shark, Bruce, at number 18 on its list of 50 best villains of all time. Not just movie villains, but just best villains of all time. Roy Scheider's line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," probably the most iconic line in the film, out of several iconic lines in the film. But that's probably the most well-known. That ranked number 35 on a list of top 100 movie quotes. John Williams composed the score out of the many, many iconic scores he's done throughout his amazing career. Jaws, Star Wars, E.T., Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, just so much he's done. Jaws was probably the first really iconic score he did that a lot of people would recognize, I would say. And his score ranked 6th on a list of 100 years of film scores. And it ranked 2nd on a list of the 100 most thrilling films behind Psycho, which in its own right is also an iconic film. In 2003, the New York Times included the film on its list of the best 1,000 movies ever made. The following year, it placed at the top of the Bravo Network's 5-hour miniseries, 100 Scariest Movie Moments. The Chicago Film Critics Association named it the 6th scariest film ever made in 2006. So, it's a lot of ranks, a lot of high ranks. It's also received many other accolades as well. It just goes to show that how much of an impact it's had on the industry, how many people enjoy the film, how well it was for, especially for the time that it was made. So Jaws has had a huge impact on the film industry. Some of those impacts, it redefined the summer blockbuster. Or I guess defined it. It was like, it's considered by many to be the first summer blockbuster. So after Jaws was released and the film industry, studios saw how well it did, saw the potential of releasing some of its bigger films in the summer, which is something that not a lot of studios necessarily did prior to Jaws, at least not as much. They shifted their focus from like fall, winter releases, which is still, to this day, like winter releases still do pretty well. I think summer and like December releases are like the biggest releases of the year usually. But the industry shifted their focus from fall, winter releases to prime time for major films into summer, noting how well Jaws did, how well potentially a film could do in the summer, because you have a wider range of audience that are available to see the film in the summer. Schools are out, stuff like that, so there are more people who can go see those films in the summer, as opposed to like the spring or the fall. It also had a huge marketing strategy, which was new and introduced by Jaws, which is something that no other film really ever did prior to Jaws. So Universal spent about $2 million to market the film, which nowadays $2 million isn't much. A lot of films, especially like big blockbusters nowadays, probably I think market like 50 to 100 million, which is insane just for marketing. But back then, $2 million was a very significant amount, and not seen prior to that for marketing a film. But they used extensive TV spots, talk show appearances, and this approach, combined with the film's suspenseful storytelling, character development, helped establish Jaws as a cultural phenomenon, and it continues to influence the film industry to this day. So before Jaws was released, before they started marketing it, a lot of films prior to that used to just market in like smaller ways. When they did release, they would release to like different markets at a time, so they kind of had it like gradual release into theaters. Jaws was kind of the first film that had a wide release, which also impacted how successful it was at the box office. And part of that, you never really saw a film just have a wide national release like that. And a lot of studios, once they saw that and how successful that kind of opportunity is, started to see that a lot more with feature films. The use of like sound effects, subtle editing, the use of the iconic score by John Williams also further contributed to the effectiveness as a horror thriller film. Spielberg's decision to keep the shark's identity hidden until the final act was also a master move that allowed audiences to experience the terror through their imagination. It changed the way films were made, marketed, but it also set a new benchmark for what audiences expected from major motion pictures. With Jaws, before Jaws, Jaws was kind of the first movie like this. Before Jaws came out, you never really saw a movie quite like that. Once Jaws was released and people saw what it was and the potential for what a movie could be, they started to expect more, I think. And so it just goes to show the impact Jaws had with audiences and their like perspective and expectations of what they wanted to see in a movie, especially like a quote unquote blockbuster film going forward, and just the impact it had in the industry as well, and continues to impact to this day, which is why we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the film. So, going back to Steven Spielberg hiding the shark until the final act, I know like there's also a lot of like stuff that when they were making the film that hindered production, hindered filming, which we'll get into a little later. They had a lot of issues with the Bruce the Shark, who was a mechanical shark for the film. So I always thought that was part of the reason why they had like limited showings of the actual shark in the actual final cut of the film. So I always thought it was kind of a mix of both, because obviously like they had the script, so they knew like they weren't necessarily going to see the shark. But I think that we might have maybe seen a little more of the shark if they didn't have so many issues with filming with the shark, the mechanical shark. But maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, like it definitely helped the imagination of the audiences, helped us to really start thinking of what this creature could be. Like, and it made it a lot more suspenseful, because very beginning, the girl died. We didn't know, like, we knew there was something big that was dragging her down, but we had no idea what it was. So it opened our imagination, not seeing the shark until the final act. And then we finally see it, and then we're like, oh, okay, that's what it is. So it definitely had a huge impact on the way he chose to introduce this villain in the film. Some of the significant like challenges they had in the film, they had a lot of issues with the shark malfunctioning, mostly due to like saltwater corrosion with the mechanics in the shark, because they did film a majority of the film obviously on the open ocean, and the salt water mixing with some mechanics, it resulted in a lot of delays for the film, and a lot of frustrations as well. Production overruns were another part. The budget increased significantly from $4 million to over $9 million. And at the time, I mean, even now, like, that's not a small amount. But for film, especially at the time, that's a very big amount. And it resulted in extending the shoot from 55 days to 159 days, over 100 extra days of filming, which as an actor and even for like crew that work on the film, that's huge. You're like for a big film like this, you're contractually obligated to be available for as long as they need for filming. But, you know, as an actor, that hinders your opportunities to potentially do other projects. When you sign on to the film and you see that as an actor or even part of the crew, cameramen, props guys, like set designers, whatever the case is, when you first sign on, first do the contract, you're like, okay, it's going to be this amount of days that they're going to need me for. So you kind of can work your schedule around that in a sense for other potential projects that might come up. having this much of a delay, it's a huge thing, because you're now going to be unavailable for so much more time. Some potential projects that you might have been able to do if that wasn't the case are down the drain. You can't do them because you're contracted to this project. And having them in delays, luckily Jaws became a huge success. But that's not usually the case. I feel like a lot of times when movies or shows like are delayed this much, it doesn't. A lot of the time it negatively affects the final product. So I feel like Jaws is kind of an exception in a lot of cases, and it became something great. And luckily they were able to pull it off and make something that has had so much of an impact over so many years. Also, filming outside and on the ocean, of course, you have to deal with weather, sea conditions. Since they were filming in the open ocean, and a lot of it was like farther into the ocean, like it wasn't like too much like really close to land. I don't know how far out they were. Obviously, I wasn't there. But the farther out you got in the ocean, obviously, like there's gonna be more waves, more conditions to deal with. So they had to deal with a lot of like rough seas, heavy rain, high winds. That also affects delays the shooting schedule. It also affects the equipment they use, both the shark and just like filming equipment, like any sound equipment they might have, cameras. They have to protect the equipment, so it just keeps delaying everything. There are also some like cast crew issues in the film. Behind the scenes, there were conflicts between several crew members, cast members. Supposedly, like Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss had some kind of conflict during filming. And I don't know if they ever got over it. Hopefully they did, but they, still made a great film. Were able to still work together. So Jaws has had not only impacted the industry in the sense of how studios approach to like marketing, releasing, stuff like that. It's also had so many like spin-offs that aren't directly related to Jaws, but are inspired by Jaws. So some of those include Orca, Grizzly, Mako, The Jaws of Death, Barracuda, Alligator, Day of the Animals. I think most recently, like the Meg, 47 meters down. Now the Meg, I only saw the first one. I didn't actually see the second one, but I liked the Meg. I thought it had like a pretty good mix of like comedy, thrills, suspense. So I think he did a pretty good job. I think the biggest spin-off or rip-off, as Steven Spielberg says, is Piranha, which Spielberg declared as the best, rip-off of Jaws. But it just goes to show you how much of an impact Jaws had, how many people throughout the years have been so inspired by Jaws and the success it's had, and tried to replicate that in a lot of ways. Now, Jaws was, like, before Jaws came out, we never saw anything like Jaws. Jaws came out, it redefined cinema. Not just for what it was, but also the impact it left. The sense of imagination it gave us as an audience. For me, I actually, I rewatched Jaws on its re-release a couple weeks ago, and it was actually the first time I watched Jaws all the way through. Um, when I was younger, I've seen every part of Jaws. I just never actually watched it all together in one sitting from beginning to end, and this was the first time. Um, so getting to see like the whole story from beginning to end with no interruptions was great, and it definitely like impacts your complete like thought of the film as well. Yeah, I really enjoyed Jaws, and the fact that we're still, 50 years since it was made. And it's funny because I know for like kids, I remember in an interview Mark Hamill had for Star Wars when he was like in an airport or something, and like the parents had their kids with them, and the parents were like, "Oh, it's Luke Skywalker," and the kids just watched probably the original trilogy. I think the parents showed them, and Mark Hamill said, like they think the kids see you on the screen as your younger version, and they think you filmed it like last week, so like they're confused when they see you in person as like an older, more grown up. And for Jaws, like the point of that, it's not just like a generational thing. It's been a huge thing that's impacted people over so much time. For Jaws, Star Wars, like Superman, like Tyler Hoechlin, when he was first cast as Superman in the Arrowverse, he said during a Comic-Con panel that some guy to go up to him, shook his hand, like thank him for being Superman, and Tyler said that it's a thing that impacted so many people over so much time for a bunch of different reasons, and it's the same with Jaws. And after 50 years of celebrating this movie, seeing how much it still impacts people to this day after so much time. How much it's influenced the industry, how it influences audiences, how it's impacted the way films are made, the way films are marketed, is just a testament to what Spielberg and that whole cast and crew was able to do when they made the film. And it'd be interesting to see like what they think. And I know they're not all still with us, unfortunately, but like Spielberg, Dreyfuss, Lorraine Gary, I think she's still alive. Asking them like today, like when you make something like this that ends up being so iconic, so popular, you don't necessarily think while you're making it, this is going to become something huge. And I'm sure that like with all the conditions, issues they were having on set while they were filming, they probably didn't even expect it necessarily to like become a huge success like it was. Or maybe they did. I don't know. Part of what made Jaws so successful was like the storytelling, the in-depth characters. It had a mix of like thriller, suspense, a little comedy, all of that heart. And a lot of these spin-offs that are trying to capture that same success Jaws had when it was first released aren't necessarily doing as well because they lack some of those ingredients that Jaws was able to capture to become as successful as it was when it was first released. And now we are going to wrap things up. Jaws at 50. Watching Jaws over the years, following Steven Spielberg's work over the years, all the different films he's made. With Jaws, a lot of people consider Jaws one of, if not maybe his best film ever. He's in a lot of really good films. So, but just as an actor, seeing how Jaws has impacted people, how it's impacted me as an actor, with what it was, especially for the time, the potential films have, how much it's impacted a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. It's a big film, a great film. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about. Comment in the video on social media, letting me know how Jaws may have impacted you, what you liked in the film, what you might not have liked in the film. Hopefully you liked something in the film. But even if you didn't like the film at all, if you've never seen it, watch it. Great film. Follow us on social media. We're Instagram, Twitter. Subscribe to the channel to stay updated with future episodes. Like the video if you enjoyed today's episode. Comment on the video. Follow us on our social media, like I just said. Stay updated with everything we're planning to do with the podcast. And I'm excited for our next few episodes. So, thank you everyone for watching today, and I will see you all next time.